All right, and we're live. And let's just make sure this is going out okay on the old YouTubes. Come on. All right, sounds good. Come on. I hate using a little mouse on the laptop. That little pad in the front of a laptop. I hate that. But anyways, don't have enough USB ports. I can't really have the mic and the mouse plugged in at the same time. So, a couple of things I want to talk about, mostly comic book related tonight. So I'll just say right off the get-go, if that's not your thing, well then, this might not be the episode for you guys. Although I'm probably going to get to other stuff by the end of this. But, if not, check out other vids. This might not be the one for you. But I saw there was going to be a Conan Wonder Woman crossover miniseries coming out. Saw that advertised. Thought, sounds pretty interesting. And then I saw it was written by Gail Simone. And I was like, that old cat lady. Now I think I'll pass. So that went for as one person replied to me, I think on Gab or Twitter or something, like, wow, that went from a 0 to 100 to a 0, back to a 0 in record time. Another cool comic book coming out I want to check out. I saw it advertised at Comic Shop News. It was something called Dark Ark, where basically it's like, it's a sort of take on the Noah's Ark story where all the evil forces, spiritual forces, had somebody build an ark for all the monsters in the world. And this is the story of all these monsters and creatures of the night and unholy things trying to get along on this ark for 40 days. It sounds like an interesting read. I'm definitely going to check it out. But the big thing I wanted to get to, there's an article on bleedingcool.com in which they talk about some rumors coming out of Marvel. And those are what I want to talk about. There we go. Okay, so some of these rumors coming out of here. Captain Cummings did a video on this. I think Diversity in Comics did. Both of their channels are absolutely great if you're at all interested in comics and the sad story state they're in. Oh, I should also mention Venomverse #1. This sort of event, but not really big event featuring Venom. It was damn good. I really liked it. And it just shows you that Marvel can be good when everything isn't done by 13-year-old girls. Editorial staff is miserable, understaffed, underexperienced, and overworked. I think just underexperienced. I don't even think they're overworked. They're not doing the fucking work. Hell, the books are full of spelling errors. The direction at the top corporate level is a mess of politics and infighting. They all look the fool to Disney because of Feig's split, and the bad PR and constant gaming of their declining sales is wearing on them. Top brass want to make a hard left back to what worked with Steve Rogers, Thor, Tony Stark, Bruce Banner, and other recognizable faces. Editorial knows how bad it's going to look to push all the diversity celebration to the side. Reality is those books don't sell, and they're terrible also. Has a lot to do with Marvel's chintzy practices finally reaching a breaking point with the fans. But the internal editorial spin is that comic shop fans aren't ready to embrace change. Now, we're going to stop for a moment. We're going to talk about that because there are always, anytime things change in a ongoing comic book, there's always the guys, I don't want nothing to do with this. But then there's the guys that embrace it. The sales might go down, the sales might not, whatever. But there's been tons of, there was a time Superman had electrical-based, energy-based powers and then got split into a red and blue version of himself. Ben Reilly took over as Spider-Man. There've been replacement characters tons at Marvel, and a lot of times they end up getting their own identities, as I've explained before. Jim Rhodes takes over for Iron Man and then becomes War Machine. Bunch of other stuff. I can't think of the guy's name, something Walker, but he took over for Cap and became U.S. agent. Eric Masterson took over Thor, became Thunderstrike. Lots replacement characters are fine. Nobody has a problem with that. And one of those 3 replacement characters I told you about was not a white man replacing a white man. And nobody had a problem with it. If you and you shouldn't check these books out because they're terrible. But Marvel's done these books, this quote unquote generations event where I guess there's like time travel and the SJW diversity squad meets the actual characters they're replacing in the past. And these books, like I read the Hulk one or thought I skimmed it, I should say. And it basically amounts to, talking about how awesome these replacement characters are. And they're not. Nobody, the team, the Artemis Chow as the Hulk is a perfect example. That should be an okay book. Artemis Chow is an interesting character, or Artemis Cho, I guess, an interesting character who was introduced in the Hulk about 10 years ago. Should be a good book, but it's not. It's just, even aside from the diversity shit, these books are poorly done. It's one thing to have Jane Foster take over as Thor, to have the hammer and take over that role. That might be interesting. But when you actually read the book, she's lecturing you about gender studies bullshit throughout it. It goes on here. It says, the terrible reaction to Hydra Cap / Secret Empire forced a change in plans. Originally, it was going to end with quasi-Dark Reign scenario where Hydra is vanquished. Thanks to cubic shenanigans, this is this cosmic cube that's come to life and is in the form of a little girl character. And the World Security Council from the movie stepping in to assume power over superheroes, and everything has Civil War overtones. So basically, do the Civil War / initiative stuff, but not as good. Okay. So they were gonna all right, well, we're gonna move on to the next bit of this because I don't want to go too much in here. Basically, the Secret Empire plans got scrapped because they realized that, it wasn't what anybody was going to want. Legacy is a rush job. That's the thing I told you about with the Generations is the prologue to it, I guess. They can't afford to take the classic characters off the table like that for so long, but they also don't want to piss off the new diverse audience, which is like 9 people. Whatever. They've been trying to court. It's a bunch of critics. They'll get roasted in the sites, but they'll actually see sales go up if they just abandon this shit. Trying to have their cake and eat it too. That's very much what the Generations is. Please all masters. It's a scattershot way to buy time while they write the course on several books. It's not going to be about new #1s, but milestone issues, 500, 600, 800 issues. Good. Go back to the original numbering. The new #1s all the time is obnoxious. A lot of these big volume numbers are really stretching the definition, but okay, whatever. They're bringing this is really interesting because it's incredibly stupid. Bringing back the Ultimate line for teen heroes. Miles will become Ultimate Spider-Man again. Siri becomes Ultimate Iron Man. Ultimate Iron Man. She's a chick. Iron Man. X-Men Blue becomes Ultimate X-Men. Champions becomes the Ultimates. This is so stupid. They're just trying to capitalize on what was once a popular brand, but that's not what this just is going to provide. It's just going to dilute the brand. It's going to dilute the Ultimates brand at Marvel, because what the Ultimate line was an alternate universe where we attempt to somewhat, I don't want to say modernize, but update a lot of the mythos, but it was its own separate continuity and was originally damn good. Ultimate Spider-Man is early Ultimate Spider-Man. I'm talking with actually fucking Peter Parker in it, not Miles Morales. Early Ultimate Spider-Man with Brian Bendis and Mark Bagley was some of the best Spider-Man ever, and I was a huge Spider-Man fan. I can tell you if something is the best of the best among it, because I've read damn near all of it. It was so good. This is how good Ultimate Spider-Man was. Now, bear in mind, this was like 2000, 2001, so Spider-Man, Spider-Man hadn't even had a movie at this point. You kind of got to be a nerd to know anything about Spider-Man, really, at this point in time. I love this book so much. I was reading the individual issues. I actually bought the trade paperback of Volume 1, which I didn't do often if I had already read it. But it was that good. I'm like, I got to have it. And I loaned it out to a friend who had stopped reading comics a couple years prior, but he adored it. He loved it so much. My best friend, who's still my best friend to this day. Well, he then, he sort of straddled that jock and nerd thing. He was on the football team, but he was also kind of a nerd sort of thing. So he was in it with all crowds, really. Well, he passes this book along, and it gets passed along and passed along, people loving it. Next thing I know, like a couple weeks later, this fucking chick, I can't even remember her name. I barely knew her, but I knew she was a fucking cheerleader because she a lot of times wore the cheerleader outfit in school if she had practice right after or something. She comes up to me, offers me, like, "This is your book, right? I'm supposed to give it back to you." And I'm like, "Yeah, thank you." And she's like, "I loved it so much I cried when Uncle Ben died." Now, she's hardly the target audience for this thing, but she gave it a read and loved it. Literally everyone loved it that read it. That's how good the Ultimate line is. The Ultimate line is so good that Ultimate X-Men is the only X-Men book I ever stayed on for any length of time. I popped in and I never cared for the X-Men that much, but I popped in and out of them. But Ultimate X-Men, I stayed on from issue 1 to 100 and some odd when it finally got run into the dirt during Ultimatum. The Ultimate line was so good. To just make Ultimate books, quote unquote, the shitty teen replacement heroes, that sucks. That's a terrible decision. I'm not going to read all these, but we'll go through some more. The X-Men are in a tight spot. Resurrection, this recent push event thing, was itself a rush job after the Inhumans movie push was officially kaput. Yeah, sorry, Marvel. Inhumans isn't going to happen in any meaningful sense. There's no future for family books. Because of the Fox issues, they can't create new ideas that could go towards the movie. So it's literally just nostalgic retreads. Uncanny will be. See, this is so stupid. Well, this is interesting. Old Man Logan will be sticking around for the foreseeable future, with X-23 becoming a sidekick, and the book will just be called Wolverine. They burned out Deadpool fans with the price gouging, so no plans for spin-off series, but there will always be mini-series on the side to line out trades. This is so... Look, Fox has the movie rights to X-Men. I believe they also have animated series rights. I'm not sure. But, Disney... I always hear Disney butthurt about the fact that they don't own the X-Men, even though they own Marvel. And that's why they refuse to... They're so petty. They won't even let writers do new shit, come up with new shit in X-Men books, because we don't want to give more Fox more stuff to use. But again, you don't own the cartoons or the movies. That's it. That's all you can't do right now. But you can do tons of other shit. First of all, you can actually sell comic books. If they didn't suck ass, you would actually be able to make a little bit of money off them. But Disney, you also have the rights to X-Men merchandise, X-Men action figures. I think they might have X-Men video game rights they can pawn out. I'm not sure on that one. I think the reason they won't put X-Men, say, in like Marvel vs. Capcom is because they're just butthurt. They don't want to promote, Disney movies or Fox movies, for example. But just put them in there. Make X-Men video games. You're allowed to do that. So scrolling through. Don't expect to see classic Fantastic Four anytime. Ike has seemingly dug in its heels, even though Fox will probably never figure out what to do with them. Again, they refuse to make comic books. They refuse to make other stuff because they're not allowed to make movies. It's so fucking petty. Miss Marvel, the Muslim Miss Marvel they're talking about, is in a funky spot because most at Marvel are aware that something originally special happened with her book. She's basically the new Runaways. There was a big... When that character premiered, there was the virtue signaling did cause an initial spike in sales. It did well, pretty much at first. And this was like 4 years ago, but it immediately dropped off. It does okay in the bookstore market, like the trade paperbacks, but it really doesn't justify the push this character has. She's basically the new Runaways, a special project with a special writer's connection. It will last as long as Wilson wants to write her, with a focus on the bookstore market while she pops in and out of other books when relevant. Well, I mean, Runaways didn't suck like Durka Miss Marvel, but They want the audience to have enough familiarity with her because it's inevitable she'll be adapted sooner or later. It's way too soon for her to be introduced into any Carol Danvers sequels. So the TV division might snag her for Hulu for freeform whatever. God, so terrible. They're doing a Runaways book because they're doing a Runaways show on Hulu, but it's just a mini series. They want the trade out in time for the Hulu show. They can't seem to get readers to care if it's not BKV, if it's not the original guys, but they know people of the franchise, not the original creators, I guess. Let's see some other stuff going on here. Punisher War Machine is just one story arc involving Stark Tech. They want to pull the character back from some of the real-life darkness and imagery, make him more part of the Marvel Universe. That's interesting. They want to scale him back to the Spider-Man Defenders side of street level, with less focus on real guns and more emphasis on comic booky tech. I kind of like that. I like, because, I mean, Punisher lives in a world with all sorts of crazy. I don't like when they divorce him from the rest of the Marvel Universe too much. Al Ewing is on Spirits of Vengeance. Editors like him, but he can't sell a book to save his life. I'm not sure who that is. They just want someone with a love of Marvel lore to write the magic horror characters, to have them prep for future Marvel movie phase exploration with a Blade reboot. Yeah, there's a new Spirits of Vengeance comic with Ghost Rider, Blade, and I think Doctor Strange is involved or something. I'm looking forward to that. I really like the 90s takes on Ghost Rider, so something that harkens back to that. Something I'm looking forward to. There has been some discussion about Untold. Oh, never mind. I'm not going to read that part. That's kind of boring. Scrolling through a bit of this. Okay, on Spider-Man. Oh, yeah, they had said Slott was out on Amazing Spider-Man. Which is good. Fuck Dan Slott. He's going to be given his own Spider-Man book. I guess Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. They're going to relaunch that. Let's see. All right, that's about it for that. So it sounds like it definitely sounds like Marvel's going to try and head in some good directions. I don't know if it's going to be enough. I'll tell you what Marvel needs to do. Marvel needs to, first of all, they need to stop making everything about fucking movies. Okay? That's not the only thing you can do with these things. It shouldn't all be about, pushing for movies in the future. I realize that's the big money maker, but I got news flash for you, Disney. It's gonna die for a while. You're gonna burn out people in superhero movies, and there's gonna be at least a time period where you're not gonna be able to sell it. Maybe then years from now you'll be able to do another series, reboot but the Marvel Cinematic Universe is gonna wind down. Now, whether it's gonna be given a proper finale or whether it's you're just gonna stop doing it because it stops being profitable, that's up to you. But it's gonna wind down. Now, that doesn't mean that then years later you can't tap that well again, but you're going to have to give it some time. In the meantime, though, you can continue to sell comic books, you can continue to sell video games, you can continue to make animated series, you can continue to make merchandise, but the movie, that cow's going to be milked dry a lot sooner than people at Disney seem to grasp. That's just the way it is. Now, as I said, there's certain higher ups that seem to want to push Marvel in the right direction. The problem is there's a lot of entrenched creators there, and I even say creators loosely, like Heather Antos. Can't create anything other than a bowel movement. But you're gonna have to wrangle these fuckers in line and have them stop insulting your customers. Marvel internally needs to, especially at least on the regular writers, and certainly their editors, instigate a or initiate, a social media policy. Say, look, this is how you're going to interact with people on social media. You're not going to be a cock to our customers any longer. It's not going to work. And Disney needs to get through their head that Marvel has to be more than just, the prototypes of, Marvel comics. When they come out, they have to be more than just the prototypes for potential movies. That can be part of what they are, sure. But that can't be the end all and be all. It just can't. It's not going to work that way. So make a fucking Fantastic Four comic. Make an X-Men comic. And if you write a really awesome X-Men story, or somebody writes a really awesome X-Men story that's so fucking good, Fox, basically initially right away makes the next fucking X-Men movie basically that, then you know what you get to do? You get to put that as a trade paperback, a next printing that says soon to be a new fucking movie, and put that in the bookshelves. Yeah, Fox will be making money, but you'll be making some money too. Yeah, that's what they need to do, and they need to stop verbally and abusing their customers. They need to stop being shitbags to the fans. Otherwise, and DC's going to continue to trounce them. Now I don't know if Marvel's going to turn this around in time. I know there are people at Marvel, there's people at Disney in particular, that want to turn it around, and we'll see. The higher ups at Disney, mark my words, they are ashamed of the state that Marvel Comics, the comics division, is in right now. And here's some key examples. Think about this. Disney flat out owns a comic book publishing company. Now, where do comic books like Mickey Mouse or DuckTales, for example, or Uncle Scrooge or Donald Duck, where are they published at? Are they published at Marvel? No, they're published at IDW. Darkwing Duck and I think Cars and some other Pixar properties, and I think a Disney Princess's book is published at some company called Joe's Books or something. I don't know, some really small little company. Most of the Star Wars comics are at Marvel. However, they just very recently launched a Star Wars Adventures. Now, usually when a comic book has adventures in the title, it's geared at a younger audience. It's geared to be more accessible. Sometimes it's based off, like with comic books, it's often the ones based off of cartoons. Like if you see Batman Adventures back in the 90s, it was based off of the animated series. Interesting that you get a comic book based off of a show based off of a comic book, but yeah. But yeah, there's currently Star Wars Adventures, and that's over at IDW. Disney is already beginning to say maybe we should move Star Wars away from Marvel. That's how little faith Disney has in Marvel right now. Pardon me. They know Marvel's a fucking embarrassment right now. The other thing I want to get in, and you know what, this might be a really short episode. I don't know how long I've gone on, but I think only about a half an hour. I saw this article over at not article. I saw this picture. George Takei was on his Facebook page, and he he had this picture of him in like this fake Oval Office set. I don't know if he borrowed it from Glenn Beck or something, but um, he's all like, I'm taking command of the bridge. Get it? Because I was in that show 50 years ago. You remember I was the least memorable character in it. But I all I could think of was, set phasers to grids. I, he's sort of like the TOS equivalent of fucking the Wesley Crusher kid, What the hell? God damn, what I'm blanking on that idiot's name. Will Wheaton. In that, he's milking the fact that he's in Sulu in Takai's case, the least memorable. In Wheaton's case, the worst part. But it's like I was in a show decades ago. Remember that? Now let me tell you why you're a bigot. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. If if you enjoy this is a short little episode tonight, but if you enjoy the live stream, there's the tip jar down below where tips of any size are greatly appreciated. And I could especially use using this month. It's a bit of a tight month. I had a 6-month car insurance payment, so this month I can especially use you, loving. But if you enjoy the show, tips of any size greatly appreciate it. And that's all I got for tonight, folks. Thanks for listening. Bechtloff out.